It's not the dog dish anymore. Welcome back to Orange Peelers. Time for a change. So I've decided to rename the podcast ahead of the 2023 season. You might be wondering why. There is a couple of reasons. Firstly, you might notice that Orange Peelers is plural. I am bringing on a co-host. Hopefully that works out and he co-hosts, episodes for the rest of time, ideally. But that will all be revealed in Wednesday's podcast. Another reason I wanted to rename the podcast was to make it more NRL based rather than just the Bulldogs. There'll still be a massive focus on the Bulldogs because I'm a Bulldogs fan, but I do want to try and reach a bigger audience. And I felt like the podcast wasn't just a Bulldogs podcast. It was more of an NRL podcast. I just tended to talk about the Bulldogs more as a Bulldogs fan. So changing the name to something not specific to a team, it makes it, more other supporters, non-Bulldog supporters might be more intrigued to listen to it now that it's not named after the Bulldogs and they might enjoy it. Also, the other co-host isn't a Bulldogs fan, so it wouldn't make sense to have a non-Bulldogs fan on a podcast named after the Bulldogs. I thought Orange Peelers was a good name because I have no NRL experience. The other co-host doesn't have any NRL experience, and so with the other podcasts out there, there is guys with NRL experience and stuff. I thought it's a bit ironic that, I'm sitting here talking about footy for 40 minutes when really there's better options and probably better knowledge out there. And in the comments, a lot of the time people say, you've never played football at a respectable level. And I just want to, that's a comment that I saw and it hurt at me a little bit because I actually played under 18s as a 19-year-old. I went back and played under 18s, even though I was too old. I had a 3-year stint in the under 18s and I played a lot of football for Lithgow Workies. So I feel like that's a respectable level. But anyway, the irony in the title is that, maybe I can be considered an orange peeler. And if I was to get a role in the NRL, it probably is as an orange peeler. And I feel like I've had that comment before, someone saying, oh, you should peel oranges or whatever. So I'm not trying to say that I don't know anything about footy. I feel like I do know stuff about footy, but it's just a bit of irony because, we haven't actually played NRL or anything. And it's just a dig back at people that say, you know nothing about footy, that sort of thing. But I do feel like I know some stuff about footy and maybe you think I do as well. And that's probably why you listen, but it's just a bit of irony in the title. I thought it was kind of funny and pretty appropriate. And I couldn't find any other podcasts out there with that name, which also helps. You don't want to have a podcast have a name as, the same as 50 other podcasts. If you're searching Orange Peelers on Spotify, I want my podcast to come up first. So that was another reason to change the name. This is just a short little snippet to introduce you to the new chapter of the podcast, now called Orange Peelers or The Orange Peelers podcast. Call it whatever you want. This is how it is now. There will be a co-host. We will be dropping episodes hopefully every Wednesday is the plan. This week there'll be ladder predictions, previewing the season, previewing round 1. So stay tuned for that. But until later, I'm Winston Neville. This is the Orange Peelers.